Heads or tails? Heads. Heads or tails? Heads. Heads or tails? Heads. Okay, now I'm going to close my eyes and turn this coin between my fingers, and we will see what it lands on. Ready? Heads or tails? Tails. Now you're probably thinking, the mathematical chance of me finally getting tails on the 4th try is pretty slim. But for sake of this analogy, let's say that every time you closed your eyes and flipped a coin, it landed on tails. And every time your eyes were open, it landed on heads. See, heads is how the world views you. It's the face you wear to work, to school, to the gym, and even church. But tails is the you behind closed doors. It's the secret stories you've never told anyone, your struggles, your passions, your hidden self. My name is Kinsky, and thus far, life has taught me that there are 2 sides to every story, 2 faces on a coin, 2 identities that make up an individual, and 2 separate lives that come together to form one being, you. See, every coin has the same face, the same United States of America on the top, with whatever the heck is on the sides, and good old George Washington right in the middle. Now, I'm not saying that everyone here looks like our first president, but we all have our own front we want the world to see. Even old Georgie showed only half his face on a quarter because that's his good side. But it isn't until you flip a coin over that you learn when the coin was made, what picture it depicts on the back, and what story it wants to tell. Like this one. See, this coin was made in 2005 at the Santa Barbara Children's Hospital in California. She was born at 3:57 in the afternoon to Christina and Terrence Kinsky. She has 2 older brothers, 3 older stepsisters, and 1 stepbrother. And her favorite comfort movie is Ratatouille. Now, normally when people look at me, they just see one part of my story. They see the straight-A student who comes to class with a smile on her face, the stage manager in the background setting prop pieces, the mock trial attorney badgering a witness and advocating for the defendant, the girl in her room listening to music and doing homework. Or I might just be forever known as a senior who injured her knee playing musical chairs. But if you were to flip over my coin and learn about the other side of my story, you would learn about my dream of becoming a teacher, the way I'm almost always worrying about my brothers, my fear of not being good enough, the gratitude I have towards my house parents, and most importantly, you would find the love I feel for my mom and my grandfather, the 2 people I have loved most in the world and who are responsible for polishing me into the coin I am today. See, these parts of myself, most people wouldn't know by just looking at me. We often think we know everything about a person, especially when they have been in our lives for so long. We put people in boxes and give them labels, which is fine, but there is so much more to a person than what you see on the outside. Things labels just can't explain. For example, every time I walk down the halls of Lauderdale or Founders, I see students all around. Some are stressed about tests, most are talking to their friends, but I won't see many boarding students. Until I walk up the stairs in Lauderdale, and there they all are, speaking in different languages, mostly separated by country. Here they are loud and alive and rambunctious because they are with people who they can be their true self with. But when I see them in class, they are often quiet and reserved. This is not because they are quiet and reserved people, because when I get home, I'm able to see their true colors. Now, every time I walk down the halls of my boarding house, smells of jollof rice and gochujang fill the air. As I pass by the rooms, sounds of Korean, Japanese, and ewe squeeze past the cracks in the doors. As I enter the common area, I see Elena, Isabella, and Ruby playing cards. Except who I actually see are Busoma, Seo-hyung, and Shamida, bridging the gap that oceans and land have formed between Nigeria, South Korea, and Ghana. See, white, black, Asian, Spanish are not boundaries here, but gateways into different cultures, into different lives, into different stories. One day, I was sitting on one of the couches in my boarding house, and I started reflecting on my life. And I'm sitting there, staring at a door I've opened so many times, looking at all the houses I watched as I made my way to school each day, looking at the grass in the center of the boarding circle that changed from green to gray to white and then back again, looking at the people who came and went and the people who never left. But one thing always stayed the same: the tree at the center of the boarding circle. One so old and so tall it could be in a museum. Its roots traveling out of the grounds, always surrounded by light and wanderers. See, this tree symbolizes the Brook Hill community. All of us roots going in different directions, pointing towards Brazil or Nigeria or Finland or even Bullard, Texas. See, roots will grow by being here. Some will be cut off. Others will leave willingly, search for new ground, new roots to surround themselves with. And even though we are all different, we all lead back to the same thing. We are all connected because we are a part of this tree. Be like this tree. Be the person who understands what is going on in other people's lives and connect them to others. One of my favorite verses in the Bible is, "Weep with those who weep and rejoice with those who rejoice." But you cannot share in other people's accomplishments without first knowing why they got the award in the first place. You cannot share in other people's sorrows without first knowing what made them cry. Most of you wouldn't know that in March of 2022, my grandfather passed away, alongside his wife of almost 60 years, my grandmother. Gregorio de Santos Pineda was a great man, the greatest man I have ever known. He was born in the Philippines and moved to the States to start his own profession. He was a neurologist and he had 3 children, the youngest being my mother. And when she passed away, he sort of raised me and my brothers in ways my father couldn't. He is the reason why I'm at Brook Hill and will be going to college debt-free. He taught me what it means to be a good person and how to be humble. No matter where we went, there were always people going up to him and shaking his hand, thanking him for what he did for so many people, for saving so many lives. Now, the reason I'm telling you this story is because it must be told. If you passed by my grandfather on the street, you would never have known any of these things. You would not have known all the lives he saved, all the people he kept alive, like my mother. For he is the reason she lives on through me, because he knew her story and told it to anyone who could listen. And since I know his, by sharing it with you all, it's as if a little part of him is still alive and breathing in all of us. And even though losing him feels like I've lost my mother all over again, I know she and him will always be with me on the back of my coin. So my question is, what's on the back of yours? What story do you want to tell? Heads or tails?